All right, cool. Well, let's get into it. You ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still bothered by that comment, but your beard looks amazing in the light.
Thank
Do you oil it?
Of course.
Did you comb it today or something? Why
course,
is it
I
all
comb
like
it every day.
perfectly?
It's the way it is. I'm a master of my craft.
Craft beer. Craft singles.
Okay. let's do
Robert
it.
Kraft. Okay. What are we talking about?
Welcome back, Beerlievers, to the Don't Stop Beerlieving podcast. That's Michael. I'm Chris. It's good to have you all back here for our episode 5 of the podcast. Yep. Michael, how are you doing today? It is good to have you back on the show.
Yeah, no, I'm doing fantastic, actually. I'm super excited. I didn't realize we're at 5 already. That's kind of like a rounded number, you know?
Milestone
Number. Here we go.
I feel like every time we come on, we go, wow, I can't believe it's already 3. Can't believe it's already 4. But I'm sure we'll keep saying that.
Oh, that's going to be a thing now.
It is, well, it is now.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks to everyone who has provided feedback to the podcast so far. We really appreciate it. We've given some shout outs in the past, small ones, Jack Beatty, for the awesome recommendations and things of that nature. Keep sending them our way, whether it's a DM to the Instagram page or at our email address, which you can find in the description below. As always, hit that subscribe button for the content, ring the bell for notifications about future episodes. But it's really great to have everyone here talking about beer, learning more about beer. And it's like Michael likes to say, getting more intimate with what we're drinking, right?
Apparently, yes. It's an honorable thing to know your craft or to know anything about anything. Once you get more intimate with a subject, you appreciate it more. And that's the whole point about becoming, or at least for me, about becoming a beer professional is that this is an art, and the more I know about it, the more I can respect it. I can appreciate what goes on behind it, and I can educate people about what they can really fully get out of the beverage. So yeah. Yes, more intimate.
Fine, more intimate with your beer. That is absolutely, perfectly fine. But yeah, we have a great episode planned today. We obviously are going to talk about the challenge of last week and see what you guys brought to the table. As always, we want to hear what you were able to go out and find. So leave a comment on the video, or again, email us, DM us with what you found. We really want to experience what you guys have been able to discover through Michael's challenges. So
for sure.
Before we get into that, though, we've obviously been doing this for a bit now, and we don't always get a chance to talk about maybe some beer things that we've specifically done ourselves the past week or two. Obviously we were together last week recording, but did you get to experience anything the past week?
Oh yeah, sure. I always am on the search for a beer release, or just like beer news.
Yeah.
Actually, this is pretty relevant right now because of the upcoming Super Bowl. Last year, if you didn't notice, Big Beer and Big Beer being Anheuser-Busch, Coors, were sending out these ads, targeted ads. Remember the Bud Night? That was a big thing for them.
Sure.
And it was around the Super Bowl time where they really came to a head. And what people don't realize is that actually kind of hurt beer as a whole. And I'm referencing, actually, there's this podcast that I was listening to only about a few weeks ago by the Wall Street Journal. And it was describing how there was a movement for all of beer to just kind of create this approachable brand for beer. Because craft beer was kind of taking away the market share for Big Beer. And so with the acquisitions of Big Beer, they want to just kind of help each other out.
Yeah.
So what's really interesting is that they created this kind of got beer movement, kind of like got milk back in the day. But I guess Anheuser-Busch wasn't fully on board with it, because when they ran that ad, if you don't remember, they ran the ad stating the 4 ingredients of beer that they create, that they use to create their beer: hops, barley, water, and yeast. And they specifically targeted Coors Light, saying that Coors Light's made with corn syrup.
Yeah.
And what that did was the mentality of everybody hearing the word corn syrup, which is totally fine to use in beer, especially for creating, lagers like the ones they create.
And as a qualifier, high fructose corn syrup is not the same thing as corn syrup.
Exactly,
right?
and that's what people were thinking. They were like, oh, they heard corn syrup, they heard high fructose corn syrup, which is, you don't want to drink that. And so that like hurt the entire campaign. I guess they stopped doing it at that point. And which let really craft beer thrive. But a lot of people, and if you listen to the podcast, there was one point that was interesting, is that if you're just a TV watcher and you see, Anheuser-Busch doesn't use corn syrup, I should probably drink them. That could be your takeaway, or the takeaway could be just, beer in general is bad. Beer has high fructose corn syrup, or beer has, And so it kind of hurt the market, but it kind of helped craft, because craft, you're able, being such a small scale and being intimate with the customer.
There you go.
Being one-on-one with a customer, you can describe and really have that conversation. Whereas big beer, they're just churning them out.
Yeah, and we'll dive into that here, I think, a little bit on this episode in regard to maybe the impact that might have had on the political climate of beer. I think specifically maybe even seltzers we can talk a little bit about, and how that, kind of the health conscious mindset of a lot of people today is driving people away from beer a little bit. But we'll link to that podcast below so you guys can take a listen for yourself. It's really, really well done. It's an excellent snapshot and summary of that campaign ad, and how kind of the big beer brands initially were trying to work together a little bit, which was a kind of a new thing in and of itself, but then how that fell apart through that ad campaign. And obviously there are some of the most popular ads for beer these days, specifically big beer. Obviously the Bud Light Night is kind of, the thing you see on TV all the time. If you watch TV, it seems like there's a Bud Light Night commercial.
Oh yeah, of course.
Every other commercial. So we'll get into that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm very excited to see with the Super Bowl coming up again in a couple of weeks, what that's going to do, where we're going to go.
I'm curious. Yeah. Cause we've had quite the, quite the iteration here of those ads. We've had various, add-ons to that and things of that nature.
Sure.
But we'll also link to those commercials if you haven't seen them, so you can kind of get an idea for what that did and what they actually were imposing upon Coors and Miller with that ad campaign.
Yeah, it was very interesting. Very interesting stuff.
So before we dive into that, though, the challenge of last week, let's get into what the challenge of last week was and see what you guys were able to bring to the table. So as a quick refresher, Michael had challenged everybody to go out there and find another barrel-aged beer.
Right.
Not necessarily a stout, I guess it could have been. But the challenge was really to try to get you out of that beer style and find something else that was barrel-aged, that was not a stout. So what were you able to find, Michael?
Yeah. Well, before I go into that, is just the whole idea is, what I was talking about last week, is that there's relationships now between breweries and wineries now. And there are some beers that really open up being in a Chardonnay barrel or something like that. So this is actually Grisette by Manor Hill, where I work. It's an old farmhouse style. I think it's a Belgian farmhouse style. Slow Regard by Manor Hill. There you go. So this is aged in a barrel for several months, and it's nothing special. It's not. I don't think we use a wine barrel for this or a bourbon barrel or anything. I think it was fresh oak barrels just to get that like kind of funk. Yeah. I used the descriptor horse blanket before. I think I used the descriptor farmhouse before. It's a farmhouse ale. You're just trying to really take advantage of the wild yeast in the barrel already, and just get that oakness to it too. So this is actually a pretty mild farmhouse in terms of what it can be in terms of the style. You're looking for peppery phenols, things that are kind of funky, kind of like, are you sure this beer's not going bad? It's a little sour. That's exactly what you're supposed to be looking for, actually. That's part of the style.
You mentioned one thing a second ago. You mentioned wild yeast. Are you telling me that there is yeast living actually in these oak barrels that's just there?
Yeast is kind of everywhere. So back in the beginnings of beer, in the BC eras, when people were creating beer and letting it ferment, they would just leave it out and it would ferment. And they didn't know exactly why. I mean, they weren't scientists back then, but that's exactly what it was. There's just yeast suspended in the air. If you ever looked at a grape, like a freshly, or not even a grape, just a fruit that you pick off the tree, that kind of, I don't want to say film, but that like dust on
pollenish.
That's yeast. That is brewer's yeast right there.
Interesting. Yeah. That's amazing. So is yeast that is used now gathered through that means, or is it basically produced in some other? I have no idea where yeast even comes from.
Oh, sure. I mean, now, I mean, it can be widely harvested like that. I know of a few breweries that started their own cultures, and they would actually, I don't know how they actually harvested it, but when they started moving into their new tap rooms, they had the warehouse where they were aging their beer, and they would create their own cultures of yeast and create colonies that they would then use. But I mean, we have, as a beer community, identified specific strains of yeast, Saccharomyces strains that are just like perfect for each type of beer.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty. It's pretty amazing. So this obviously is an oak barrel.
Yes.
Is it specifically fresh oak barrel, like unused before, or is that something? Because I know we talked about last week a little bit about how bourbon needs to be in a charred oak barrel, fresh, like it can't be used for anything else prior. Does it mention whether this was something that was used for something else?
Yeah. So Manor Hill definitely shares barrels. So this is used from someone else. I do not remember where we used them
or what was in it.
Unfortunately.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And also we do different variants. So that also takes the cake on. Not takes the cake. Determines what kind of beer we're going to end up with, or what kind of phenols, what kind of dryness we're going to have. Because if it had white wine in it before, it's definitely going to come out drier, a little bit more musty, that grapeness. Because I did have Slow Regard in a Chardonnay barrel before, and it was a lot more like drinking. It was very dry, and in terms of dryness, that means not like how do you drink a wet thing and call it dry? It means not sweet. And I had that, and it was almost like drinking grape juice that left you puckering. It was very interesting. I wasn't a huge fan of it. This version I love a lot. So
there you go. So talk about the tasting notes a little bit, and then maybe we've mentioned the brewery before, obviously, because Michael works there. But if you want to, plug the brewery at all and talk about what they make in general and what their kind of shtick is, you can also talk about that.
Well, I want to talk about Manor Hill real quick. So if you've never been, we're out in the middle of Ellicott City.
Yeah.
And we're on a farm. We have 40 cows, 20 chickens, and
look at all those
chickens. And we actually just got our own corn silo, which is really cool. We actually use some of the produce on site to fuel our beer production. Not in a big way. If we're doing some kind of small batch, we'll definitely use some of that. But most of the farm actually goes towards our restaurants. We have 3 restaurants.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah. So we own.
They're not on property, are they?
No, they're not on property.
Yeah.
No, we own Food Plenty in Clarksville, Victoria's Gastropub in Columbia, and Manor Hill Tavern in Ellicott City.
So we actually went to Victoria's, didn't we?
We did.
I did not know that Manor Hill owned that restaurant. That's pretty cool. It's good food.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah. The fries are amazing. So if you're ever in that area, stop by one of our restaurants. Our beer will be served, or stop by the tap room, and I'd love to answer your questions, give you a tour. And we can get more into any itty-gritty part of beer brewing.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually. Let us, send us a message and ask when he's going to be working behind the bar there. And you can go and get a tour from Mike at Manor Hill. What about the tasting notes?
Yeah, so again, the style is Grisette. It's a farmhouse Belgian style. It is supposed to be dry. It's supposed to be funky. It's supposed to be kind of light and not necessarily super effervescent. I mean, the head is there when I pour. Let's do it. Wait, actually, I'm going to try some more. And then I'm going to pour.
There you go.
You get a little bit of a foam head. Nothing too crazy, as you can see. Yeah. It's not like a pillowy head that you see on a German beer, like a Hefeweizen. Effervescence is going to make these bubbles go down a little bit quicker. If you do that color, it's a little hazy. Honestly, it's light in the mouth, and then all of a sudden, like my tongue is dried out. It's honestly, this is a beer that I'll have one of, and then say, okay, that's that kind of, it didn't like kick me in the face like an IPA. It didn't sit heavy like a stout, but it's just it's something because it's so dry. You kind of want something else after. Yeah. If you ever had a dry beer, you don't understand what I mean. It's definitely not, there's no malt backbone like we've been having before with our beers on the show. It's definitely not super hop forward. It's just a very, funky I don't want to say plain. That's such a bad word to use
Mellow
a descriptor.
maybe is mellow.
Well, for me, mellow means, like we're going back to like a pillowy, and the body itself is enveloping my entire mouth. This isn't mellow because of the fact that it is dry. But, it depends on how you describe mellow, Yeah.
So I guess for me, maybe it's mellow. You never know.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, it's great. Definitely go out and check out Manor Hill Brewery and also pick up a case of their, I guess, what do you guys sell them in? 6-packs?
Oh, we sell 4-packs and 6-packs, depending on which beer you're asking.
Of the Grisette. So definitely check it out. Yeah. And as always, as we mentioned, let us know what you guys are able to go out and find for your barrel-aged beer. That could be a lot of different things, whether it's a wine barrel like you mentioned, or just a fresh, fresh oak barrel, fresh... I don't even know what other kind of wood they would use for beer, but
interesting. Yeah,
I guess you could pretty much use anything you want. So we'll see what you guys are able to find. Let's go back real quickly and maybe spend some time about the political climate of beer in regard to that episode, because I think it was really fascinating what that podcast brought to light. I don't think many people knew that / know what that might have done to the scene.
Honestly, if you Google Got Beer campaign or Got Beer project, it doesn't really come up. What's actually really funny is that I just Googled it, and it comes up as the New York Beer Project, which is a brewery I just popped over. And that might be because I'm signed in on Google, so they might know that I searched it before. But I don't know. But there's not a lot of beer projects in terms of what the community does together. And if you realize, actually, in the past 12 months, if you've been watching beer, especially in acquisitions, there's been a lot of breweries that have been not throwing in the towel, but actually, being bought out by bigger beer. Some big ones.
Dogfish Head, right?
Yeah, that's a big one.
They were bought out recently.
Yeah, and a lot of people think, oh my gosh, they gave up. There goes their independent label. And yes and no. If you look at the numbers for them specifically, this was the time for them to do it. You got to remember that they still have freedom to create with their own beer. They just are now under the umbrella of a bigger beer. And what's really cool is that Big Beer recognizes that they already have a following, and they're not going to touch the recipes. They're not going to ask them to be in another production facility for their lagers. They're going to let them operate with most freedom.
I hope so. I think that's the hope. From my perspective, I don't love it, to be honest with you. I'm not super fan of a brewery like that doing that. I just don't know whether. Yeah, I struggle with the motive a little bit, because if you do look at the numbers, it was a pretty good. I don't want to say it was a money grab, but it was very beneficial for them. To take that buyout, and also I think there was some of the compensation towards the founders of the brewery that was very substantial. That maybe or maybe not jeopardized some of their team. I'm not going to make a statement on that, but I think that. I struggle with it because as somebody that appreciates the small aspect of beer, I don't know. I just hope that in the long run, 10 years, 15 years down the road, we can look at Dogfish Head and go, yeah, it's the same. I think that we need to be able we need to see, right? Because I think that there are beers out there, we maybe have lost a bit of that. I don't know who owns Blue Moon now.
Oh, gosh.
Are they their own still? No, I don't think so.
No, they got bought out. I can't remember.
Yeah, but something like that, you don't think of Blue Moon, right? Blue Moon, we talked about them, I think, a little bit in the beginning, but in the first episode or something. But they're, they were kind of they were the hipster,
right? Oh, because it's always served with an orange wedge. That was a thing too.
It was the big American, craft beer, and then they've just become Blue Moon. It's like, it's just a Blue Moon. And I don't want to knock Blue Moon. I love Blue Moon. It's my favorite style of beer, a Belgian white beer like that.
I know a person that, whenever we go out for happy hour, she gets that one exclusively.
There you go. I mean, it's a great beer. Totally, but there is a perception of it now that's not, it's available pretty much everywhere you go buy beer. And again, maybe this is a weird topic because we're trying to analyze something from the perspective of a consumer. But we're trying to think about it from the perspective of the brewer. And that doesn't always make sense in our heads, right? Because it's like we're attacking Blue Moon for literally making a good business decision, but that caused a change in our perception of it. So, where do we actually lie? Are we going to be happy that it's available everywhere because we like the beer, or are we going to say because they did that, they sold out, and I no longer have that kind of a affiliation or draw towards that beer.
Oh, sure.
Anymore.
You know what's really great too is that you have to think about it. Like when one of your friends becomes successful, like makes a big break or something, or gets promoted to a very senior position, you just gotta be happy for them.
Sure.
And what's really cool is that these small breweries, you can visit them and really get to know the brewers or the owners sometimes. And so, like, a lot of people really knew Sam Calagione, the owner of Dogfish Head. They got to know him on a personal level, you know, and he actually came out with a book, which was really interesting. And I already read the book before. It's Brewing Up a Business by Sam Calagione. If you haven't read it, fantastic read. It's about his journey from, just home brewing at a college party and then all of a sudden doing this. But one of his things was it's always quality over quantity, and you always have to think about the customer.
Yeah.
And now with him kind of becoming just an arm of Big Beer, is that still going to happen? I think it's still going to happen. Midas Touch, that's one of their beers that cost them a ton of money to create. I think what did they harvest? They harvested an ingredient from like the tomb of King Midas. Like, it was insane.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, exactly. So it's super expensive for them to make, but because of that, it's reflected in the price.
Yeah.
Right. So are we going to see that beer phased out because it's too expensive for Big Beer, who's now paying for that? I don't know.
Yeah, that's where I struggle, is the creativity aspect.
It's
How
the
much
creativity
creative
aspect.
license are they going to be given? I know it sounds like they have pretty much the same creative license that they had when they were
But how long does that
independent. How long will it last? Yeah, yeah. And then additionally, I think one thing we should talk about here is going back to that ad, and I mentioned this at the beginning, but the health aspect of beer. We haven't really touched on this too much yet, but, was any of that ad campaign, and I haven't read anything on this, but my perception of it is that seems to be a direct reaction to a lot of the seltzer game.
Oh,
because people our age are a lot more health conscious these days, and the seltzer is a drink that people can go to quite easily that is no sugar, no calories, no carbs. It's like
what is
it's
it, 90
essentially
calories now for a seltzer or so?
I'm not even sure it's that high. I think it's lower, but like, you might be right, but either way, it's low, and it's never going to be high, or a beer is never going to be lower than that.
Yeah, well, because that's the thing. So seltzer doesn't have the carbs that a beer has.
Yeah.
Seltzer doesn't have the sugar that the beer has.
So I think the challenge is, how do you get people to still choose the beer option, knowing fully well that it's not the healthier option?
I mean, I can craft a lot of home brews because they're, rawly made at home. They're pushing several hundred calories a bottle. It's insane.
Yeah.
And so when you're kind of health conscious, which is a lot of what our generation has been, and just really over time, if you look at the numbers, and they'll talk about it in this podcast, the desire to drink alcohol as a whole has just declined.
Yeah.
And beer is being a part of alcohol has declined actually a big chunk of that. But people are trying to drink either less things that'll get them to that state that they want to be when they're drinking alcohol sooner. So people are actually moving towards spirits like tequila or mezcal.
Yeah.
That's also just a hipster thing. It's a millennial thing to start drinking those cocktails, or they're moving towards seltzer.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because in like, not even my, like, I don't want to say my lifetime, in the last like 2 years, it went from a stigma of, oh, you drink White Claw to please bring White Claw to my party, because
it was like that.
It was like that. It was like that. It was insane.
Perception shifted so quickly.
Yeah. And people are like bringing cases of beer and they're like, oh, like, I'm more into White Claw. And now it's almost weird for you to bring beer to a party.
Yeah, I was going to say that I brought this up before with you, but it used to be we would go to a party or we would have people over for a bonfire, and somebody brings a case of beer. People bring cases of seltzer now.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
How is the beer scene going to react to that? I really don't know, because the only thing I can think of at the moment, maybe just to close this out, and you can give your closing point as well.
Sure.
I think we need to get back to the root of why beer is so diverse and why it's so good. It's like, it's just literally a better drink. I don't think there's an argument for a seltzer ever combating the quality of a beer.
Yes.
A great craft beer.
That's
you cannot
really
beat it. And just from maybe a pure like cuisine standpoint, if that's the right word, I don't even know, but like just the flavor profiles, the work that goes into making it,
You're totally
the culture of it, it's just better. So I think as a group, as a segment of the alcoholic community, if you will. That's probably the wrong word to use, alcohol community.
Alcohol drinking community.
Exactly, alcohol drinking community. We need to, I don't know, stand up and basically say that, no, I'm not going to settle for that simply because I want to get, blasted or something on a weekend.
Right.
Enjoy what you're drinking, enjoy it well, enjoy it right.
Yeah. For those like super health conscious people, we get it. If you're like on a ketogenic diet or something, people say you can have like one Mickey Ultra. That's fine. You're doing something like very different though. For those people who are just drinkers, find quality. Quality is in beer, and you're not going to find that in a seltzer.
No.
But anyways, we'd love to talk about this a lot more. There's a lot here because
we will dive into it later.
Oh, definitely. But we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. We can start a whole discussion chain if you want. Please hit us up on the YouTube comments. We're getting a lot of love on YouTube, and also we'll allude to this on our Facebook too. So please,
yes, let us know. Before we go, real quick, what will the challenge be, Mike, for next week?
Oh gosh. Okay, so we're talking about big beer here. We're talking about big beer trying to take it over here. Let's go back to what like quality again. Let's talk about the good aspects of going to your local brewery and supporting them. So I want you for this challenge to go to your local brewery and just have one of their flagships. Tell me about it. Flagship is like one of the beers that they're just going to constantly have on rotation because
what they're known for.
What they're known for, exactly. Or if you're lucky to just walk into a brewery and they're having a bottle release that day or a beer drop, have that. Tell me about it. And I want you actually to bring a crowler home. That's actually going to be for a future challenge I have planned for y'all. Okay.
Of that same beer?
Sure. If you want that, or if something just really strikes your eye, take it home. Support your local craft brewery and just enjoy the tap room.
Awesome, love it. So go out to your local brewery, get one of their flagships, and also get a crowler for a later episode.
Or a growler, go wild.
Or a growler, get the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
But with that, we really thank everybody for joining us on today's episode. We really appreciate all the support as always. Definitely give us a subscription below. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, email us at our email, which is
don'tstopbeerleaving@gmail.com.
And we will see you all next week.
Cheers.